Hello everybody, welcome back to the Super Suck Hour for another venture into I don't know what the fuck we're doing. Just kidding, we really got this shit together. Thanks for watching. We have an exciting guest in the studio today, Mr. Famous DKE Toys, Dov Kelemer. Special guest. He's a famous behind the scenes guy. He's the most famous behind the scenes guy in the whole toy game. And we're gonna and he's a mentor to all of us, and we're gonna roast him real good, and it'll probably wind up we'll look really stupid and he'll win. David Healy is here.
Hello.
To cover my ass when I start getting too stoned and drunk and forget what I'm talking about.
Right.
J Corp is here getting a little work done on her laptop while we just prattle on about stupid shit that only boys like. And Nasty Neil is
Here I am.
Yep.
Here I am.
And he's once again stunting as only he can stunt. Do we have a sponsor for this episode? We do, right? Is this the thing? Am I wearing this? Okay, well, we just had the New York City Cannabis Film Festival, and it was amazing. It was one of the greatest experiences any of us ever had. And all I got was this lousy t-shirt. So, seeing as how the guy sold me a bag of weed at cost and kind of hooked me up. Yeah, and kind of is hooking me up doing my shit for less than his day rate. The goddamn least thing I can do is wear his fucking t-shirt.
That's nice.
It's the right color
It's like
for
a
me.
salmon.
It's the right color for me. It's a nice salmon pink. And so
salmon.
there you go.
Oh.
New York City Cannabis Film Festival. It's a yearly film festival about films related to cannabis. And you got to check it out. It's amazing.
Now, do they normally make pink T-shirts, or was that made specifically?
Was this
for
made
you?
specifically for me? Okay,
Holy
cool. All right.
Oh, that's impressive.
Do you want to buy it?
No.
I'll sign it.
There's a possibility.
You said it so nonchalantly.
I say that to him a lot. Usually he does buy things.
That's a 50-50. Yeah, I would have said either way.
Okay.
Maybe if you wear it for a few years.
Okay, sure. I got another one. Do you have any interest in any like of my old studio clothes or anything like that?
I'll pass.
Dirty pants with resin all over them. You don't collect that kind of shit?
Resin.
Really? People buy those things.
That's not
People
really
buy those
blue
things.
chip.
No? If it was fucking Picasso's pants, you'd want them, right? Somebody would, right?
Somebody.
Okay, fine. All right, so let's cut to the chase. If you're in the toy business like we are, and like I want to give a shout out to everybody that told me that the last 3 episodes that I made sucked and that I should go back to talking about toys. Thank you. You know, we like to try new things around here on the Suck Hour. I don't think I'm going to go back and do another fucking politics episode anytime soon.
Toys, man. People like toys.
Toys. People want to talk about
Just
toys.
take a picture of Luke Skywalker, put it on your Instagram, and people will like it.
I just felt like talking about the election just immediately felt like I was in like a septic tank.
A lot of people get uncomfortable around the conversation, you know.
Yeah, and then people started saying shit on the YouTube channel that just was stuff I didn't really need. I don't need to drudge that shit up. So we're gonna. Although you are really good at intersecting politics and Star Wars and toys, so it might come up.
I
But
think politics affects everything that we do in our life. So
yeah,
people might not want to hear you talk about it for an hour, but it's important.
yeah, that's true. I guess that's more of a saying. I don't know. I sound like
They
an
don't care about what's
uninformed
important. They
liberal
care about
idiot.
toys.
You know, you're like a business, you know. It's like a Coca-Cola commercial about politics. Like people don't want that. They just want Coca-Cola, you know.
Whatever. We're not doing that again today.
They want the lions in the Coliseum is what they want.
That's true.
Plus, they find out like you're some Democrat and you have mainstream liberal values, and then you're suddenly boring to them, or a sellout, or
Yeah,
you're
like,
not
I'm
edgy
sure
enough,
I have-
because I'm not like an Illuminati guy or a conspiracy guy or anything like that.
You're
So
not in the Illuminati?
no, but I don't.
Not you.
No, there's no Illuminati.
Yeah, seriously,
All right,
watch
all right, Dove. So like people who know the toy business know who you are, and I want to figure that out. But just the only question I wrote for you for this show, just so I can, because I know you so well, or I think I do. We have a long history, so it's like I'm subjective. When you're on, like, when you meet somebody for the first time and they ask you what you do, and they're not in the toy game, they don't know about any of this. Like a guy sitting next to you on your plane, he asks you what business you're in. What do you say? What do you say you do?
Depends really if I want to make conversation or not.
Assuming you don't mind telling him really honestly and truly how you describe it.
I guess I tell them that I'm a designer toy distributor, and they usually say, "Well, what's that?" And then I have to start, at the top.
So what is it?
Designer toys is this kind of little pop culture renaissance we've had in the past, I'd say 10, 15 years of a lot of artists with the ability to make three-dimensional objects, limited editions. We call them toys. They're not really toys. They're three-dimensional sculptures that are usually on the pricier side of things because the lack of economies of scale.
And usually their eyes start rolling back in their head around this point, and
sometimes it just depends how far you want to take it.
But is that all? That's not the only thing you do, though. This is more complicated than that, isn't it?
I do lots of things, but most of the time it's just like someone asks you how you're doing. Like they say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And you just say, "I'm fine."
Yeah.
They don't really want. They don't really care how you're doing, and B, if you start going off and saying, "Oh, well, you know, my neck kind of hurts, and my mom yelled at me, and my cat's
nobody
missing."
wants to hear that crap. But
right.
the stuff you do is interesting. It's not the same thing as complaining. You feel like when you're telling someone what you're doing, you're complaining. Because it sounds like it.
I feel that most people don't want to hear about it. So
I asked you, so I do want to hear about it.
We already know,
but I'm asking for the benefit of somebody who does want to hear it, but might not know.
I think it's a weird thing because most things you can say, like, how you doing? I'm fine. What do you do? I sell cars. This is something that automatically you need more of a definition, so it sounds like I'm fine, but really I ate something earlier and it's really not agreeing with me. Like, that's... It ends up sounding that
but it's
way.
like, I'm fine. I got a good night's sleep last night.
It's like,
you should try this new supplement I'm taking.
It would be like, I sell things that you don't understand.
All right, but listen, we're already off the fucking track. Just like, all right, but what else?
Right, so when I was about 18, I was very interested in collecting Star Wars toys.
Why?
I didn't have enough as a kid.
I see what this is about.
All right, there's all sorts of reasons for collecting.
Fill that
Collecting is a disease. They say it has to do with
not being loved enough,
not being breastfed. You know?
No, get the fuck.
All right, so that children who are breastfed learn to identify with people, and children who are given a bottle too soon start to identify with a thing for their pleasure and start relating. There's a whole bunch of other theories about why people collect things.
Is that why you collect things?
Dude,
that's some
DJ Corp.
thinking.
Google, please.
Yes, we'll do.
I don't know.
Do you collect, Neil?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an interesting phenomenon now about the younger generation, the millennials, who are not collecting anything. And all of these companies that have been making comic books and cards and statues and toys, like that, all that shit's like going down the toilet because millennials don't want to own anything. They're relating to everyone online, on their phones, on social media, and they don't really care about stuff.
Are there any numbers on? Has there been an increase in breastfeeding when millennials were young? Is that something that they've looked into? Or?
But I also think, like, aside from the breastfeeding thing, the existence of the technology is what's taken them away from that world. It's just like you can have this totally immersive experience, and you can collect things online. They collect likes, they collect hits, they collect. Well, yeah, in a way,
it's true.
they
it's another currency.
It's another currency, but.
There was a period in our history where literally doctors were telling, mothers, like, you don't need to breastfeed, that's gross, that's something that, like, Aboriginal people do. And there's all sorts of things. There's, like, I think they identified 200 elements that are in breast milk that they cannot recreate in formula. Now, formula is great, like, if it saved countless number of lives. If a mother couldn't give milk.
Okay.
But don't you think that's interesting, man? Like, I've been in the store with you, like a junk shop, and we've walked past like the most bizarre plastic thing, and we've both had a weird attraction to it, and stuff like that. So there's something weird with that, don't you think? And if it could be linked to like everything's from when you're young, so when you're really young.
But the thing is, how do you want to react to that? Like, I can look at it in the case and be like, oh, that's amazing, I love it, and then I can walk away, where some other person has to own it.
Oh, but I'm just saying. Okay. Yeah,
I don't remember if I was breastfed. Were you breastfed?
No, I had surgery when I was 8 days old, and after that I was like bottle all the way.
See.
So
do you think that's why? I mean, you're a super collector.
My mind's blown.
That's a whole other aspect that I mean, now that we're on it, you have the greatest collection of everything.
No, I do not.
I mean, you collect a lot of stuff. You have tons of stuff.
I have lots of interests.
You have lots of interests.
But collectors, which is really funny, all have rules. Like they make little rules for themselves. Well, I collect this, and it has to adhere to a certain rule, and then they go in that.
It's like a curatorial.
I like your taste. I think like Dov's collection is great because there's a lot of things he likes that I like.
Okay,
like Mad Magazine covers.
Okay,
but my taste has gotten really weird. Like as I collect very few items now that are actually licensed properties. I actually like handmade and artist-made things, and kind of it's kind of going in the direction of like the shittier the better, right? And
the off the record shit.
And it's like it's shitty, but the artist thinks it's amazing. It's like Ed Wood, it's like they're so deluded that they've created this thing. It's the best thing that they can do. I mean, I'm the one who has always argued that Morgan, in a way, is a folk artist, right? I mean, that this whole resin scene is kind of the modern folk art. These are people who were not trained how to make toys, and they've kind of gone about trying to figure out how to, turn their passion into their own little universe. Like, you just decided, I want to be my own George Lucas, and I'm gonna, be the Sucklord, and here's all the people, and here's the bad guy. You have your Darth Vader, and
and you've gone on to exploit these people for your own benefit.
Yeah, you could call it exploitation, but I don't think you get to call it that.
No, well, you know what in my hyperbolic way, you know what I mean. I mean,
But back to your other point about Star Wars toys.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that was unique about the whole Star Wars world that I'm not sure exists today is that back in the day, Kenner was making action figures for characters that were on the screen for like 2 seconds, right? So it encouraged, with 100 different figures, one of the most expansive lines before G.I. Joe came along, and it was like encouraging kids to...
That was a pivotal moment for me. That second set of Star Wars figures is the most important toy line in my...
Because it
that
encouraged...
completes the 21?
Yeah, the Greedo, the Hammerhead, the Power Droid,
yeah.
the R5-D4. Because if you obviously you get the main characters, that's a given. But then when you see just a little glimpse of the B-list and C-list characters, it means if they can make these guys, they can make anything.
And they did.
And anything can be a toy.
Right, but then when you're a little kid and you're playing with these, you're imagining your whole new world. You're creating your stories. Like it's very different than today. If the property is a video game, which is a very set narrative, and that you're making toys of those characters that only do these specific things. I think that the property in general has gone beyond what the movies were, because it was all of these kids' imagination. Mm-hmm. And then the 3 3/4 inch scale, once G.I. Joe came out, once all these other companies kept doing that you could start putting your G.I. Joe characters into your X-Wing and your Darth Vader.
And your Micronauts.
That's unheard of.
And your Micronauts. But you're saying, though, but to get back to your story, you're saying that you were deprived of this experience as a kid, or you didn't get it fully.
I don't know.
What
my
do you
mom's
mean
going to watch this.
You didn't get enough Star Wars toys when you were a kid. What does that mean? I got everything I wanted.
This guy had like
10
stormtroopers.
Well, then that explains what's
that's
wrong
like
with you.
something I would
We're
want,
gonna
but
get to that later.
I couldn't believe it existed. Like I never even thought. Yes, 10 stormtroopers would be incredible, but also owning a speeder bike would. Like it was
I had
on
3
that
speeder bikes.
No, I'm talking about real ones.
Oh,
it was
real
on
ones.
that level of
The fucked up thing is that everybody knew the one kid, the rich kid, who did have like 20 stormtroopers. Well, so and so had 20 stormtroopers. And it's
I was real generous with my toys. I let
melted.
people come over. My friends came over and we smashed and destroyed everything. I wasn't really. It was fun because it gave me some currency with other kids. Like I wanted to hang out and have
you
fun.
didn't
I
have
was a
to
little
plead
weird.
for them. Like what was?
My mom just liked Star Wars
and
loved
so
me,
it
and
was
she
more
had
your
it. They
mom.
weren't really that expensive. I mean,
it's really your mom was the one that facilitated it. It wasn't you.
She had enough money. My mom wasn't rich, but she made enough nipple clamps to buy the Star Wars toy, and she saw how happy it made me, so she bought it for me.
And she saw the movie and liked that there was a lot of troopers and was like, oh, you should have a lot of those.
I don't know about that. I didn't get them like go and buy 10. Once we'd go to the toy store and they didn't have anything new, get a stormtrooper or two, boom.
Yeah.
And then there it was. But
I think my parents, I think that whatever I was into, I don't want to. They're gonna watch this, so I don't want to say like it wasn't taken seriously. It's just like, I think the attitude was like, that's kid stuff. But
you were a kid.
I was, but there's a different. I think you had a different experience than most. I think your mother's is unique, in that her ability to identify with your interest. I
Potentially.
think generally most kids our age growing up, that what kids were doing were just considered like, oh, that's kid stuff, and you didn't necessarily partake of the same things, where in this generation, well, even as little as 10, 20 years ago, if you collected action figures, you were like the 40-year-old virgin, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but these days, if you look at this generation, that's my generation, that's having kids, right? They're playing video games with their children. They're watching cartoons with their children. They're going to concerts with their children. They're playing with the same toys, games. All of that stuff is gone. I'm going out and buying, DVD and other, like media content that I watched as I was a kid, and showing it to my 3-year-old. Like he's already seen the whole first season of Smurfs. Like, yes.
Okay,
So now, Dov,
must be a rewarding experience.
Like, your mother and father, have you ever heard them say Chewbacca, Darth Vader? Did they ever get that into it to actually say that, or was it just your space toys, Star Wars toys? Like how?
I don't remember. I think some of those, definitely not my dad. My dad was way older.
Yeah.
My dad was, 30 years older than my mom. Mm-hmm. So we didn't identify on that level. He was totally an older generation. I think, there were a lot of those terms that were just household names by that time.
That's true. Okay.
Sure, my mom can identify Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Probably not Greedo,
Yeah, totally.
Got it.
You get what I'm saying?
But okay, so when you were 18 years old, you said you've had an interest now in getting what
I always liked it.
Right.
I did not have the resources as a child to have everything, and I didn't at 18 either. But I started buying collections in order to. I think most.
Did you ever have a job or anything, or did you go right into entrepreneurial toy dealing when you were old enough?
I worked at a comic shop, worked at the Golden Apple in Hollywood.
Like when you were in high school?
When I was 14, 15. And then I had another job at a baseball card shop, and one job I got fired from, and the other one I quit because the guy was so stupid, and I just decided, like, I know how to do this better than they do, and I did it myself. So no, I've never had a 9-to-5 working for anybody else.
Got it. Okay. So and yeah, good for you.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Moment of silence.
Well, I mean, the joke is, like, you work 16 hours for yourself, so you don't work 8 hours for somebody else. I mean, it is freeing.
Yeah, you
in
work
some
your
way,
fucking ass off,
but
and you always have.
You work harder. What you have is more room for growth.
Also, it's by your own wits and skill that you succeed or fail, and you're not tied to some other person's,
it's like
decision making or.
It's like the way you look at a clock. It's like this: if you have a job, you can't wait for the day to be over. If you have a career, there's not enough time in a day.
Right.
So yeah.
That's a much nicer way.
That's a nicer way to put it.
Cool thing.
All right, so it just sort of naturally just was a thing. Then you were to just buy and sell Star Wars collections.
I think most collectible dealers started out as collectors themselves, wanting to buy more than they could afford. You buy some doubles, you start selling them, and then I was trying to sell some movie posters to Hollywood Book and Poster on Hollywood Boulevard, and must have been 18 or 19, and I walked in, and as I was walking in, on the corner there's this German guy having a complete conniption fit with a taxi, or I don't know what went wrong, but I brought my posters in, and it always infuriated me, the Hollywood poster dealers, because they would have a poster on the wall for $20, and if you brought one in and say, okay, would you give me $10 for it? And they're like, nah. It's like, well, how do you get your stuff? Like, the markup was in some businesses, there's some dealers that are used to getting some stuff at such a huge markup in the beginning that as things become collectible, they don't want to rebuy it at a higher price. Anyway, he was just not interested, didn't have time for me. And so this German guy, his really high voice, looked somewhat like David Healy.
Only he was a eunuch.
But he had like weird facial hair, and he had a really high voice. His name was Wolfgang.
Ooh.
And he says, "Oh, you want to sell posters?" I'm like, "Sure. Are you interested?" And I just looked at the guy. I was like, something's weird is going on here. He says he'll buy my posters but I have to give him a ride home. No, I was raised like, you stay away from strangers, other people are creepy. I was getting to an age where, I was tall. I was already probably, 6 foot, 6'2", and I was like, this guy's pretty scrawny.
I could take him.
Wait, whoa. He looks like me. Strange looking, kind of scrawny. All right.
Anyhow, so
get to the good part.
Can I drop this mic?
So I said, fine. This is weird, but I don't know why. I had a feeling. I took him home. He was from Germany. He didn't live here. He took me to this guy's house. This guy named Harry Frydenberg. Harry Frydenberg was one of the biggest Star Trek and Star Wars dealers back in the day at those creation shows, and he was a bootlegger of like outrageous proportions. Would pay off people in the studios to get their scripts, would photocopy them. So there's a lot of stuff on the Star Wars market, scripts and patches and stuff that he was the one who made them.
And those are the ones you want more than anything else.
Nowadays, back then they were considered
Correct.
garbage.
Yeah.
But so I walked into this dude's house, and he was in his 70s or 80s, and I just saw Star Wars stuff everywhere. I was like, holy shit, like, this is amazing. I saw a land speeder. I saw all this shit that I was kind of losing my shit. Like, I'm in this house just in Hollywood, a nice house, and I'm like, what? And, there's this weirdo Wolfgang there, but this guy's like, oh, I sell this stuff. I used to. I'm retired now. And I'm like, what are you doing with all of this? And I called him back, and I was like, do you want to sell all your inventory? And somehow I worked out a deal for $4,000, and it took me, I had a U-Haul box truck, which I had to make 3 trips. I mean, it was insane. I had
This is all vintage Star Wars shit?
Vintage. I had unopened cases of Bradley talking alarm clocks, wrapping paper,
And you got it all for
cards.
$4,000?
$4,000.
A lot of toys?
What
There
year
were
was
toys.
this?
When Star Wars was just in the dumps.
Right.
93.
Let's see, that
It
would
be
be
before
20. It'd be 90, 91, something like that.
Yeah.
And I had to go tell my mom, like, I was still living at home, and I was like, look, I'm going to go spend $4,000 on all this stuff. And she's like, are you sure? This seems weird. And I'm like, this is like the deal of a lifetime.
Hell yeah.
And I filled up a room about twice this size. There was a ceiling fan. You couldn't even move the ceiling fan.
But did you buy it just for your own personal collection, or you were buying it with intent to move it? Or you were going to take your part, farm out what you wanted?
Yeah, I was always pulling, one of everything for myself. It was like
But
always
was
taking
there,
the best example.
that was kind of like a downtime for interest in Star Wars, one of the reasons why you got it so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
What made you so confident that you could sell it for more?
Because I still went to conventions and I saw the stuff for sale. It was, it was a stupid price. He was done. He happened to be, this aging,
You said he was 70 years old, right?
Pardon?
You said the guy was 70 years old,
Yeah,
right?
but he was this like aging gay man who would cruise Santa Monica Boulevard and get one of his babies, he would call them, and they would rob him blind. They end up stealing the money. Like, it was just terrible. Like, he
Was
would,
Wolfgang gay also?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
But he collected Hollywood stills of child actors.
Mm.
Oh God. Well,
Whatever.
yeah. Let's. We could go down infinite holes here.
All right, so
Made it.
the
Wolfgang ain't gay.
to make story short, it was with that I started the business. I started selling at antique malls, and I started trading to other
And it
dealers.
was at this point still just exclusively Star Wars shit.
There was other stuff in there, but primarily that was kind of where it was at for me.
And you were good at this shit, and you spun it into something.
There was another dealer named Lance Worth who had a shop called Star Force Collectibles, and most of that stuff every month at the shrine, I would bring him a trunk full of stuff, and he would bring me a trunk full of vintage stuff and trade, because he was opening a store. So me offering him 100 rolls of wrapping paper, that was cool for him to sell. I got like a 12-inch Boba Fett or something like that. Actually, that was my down payment. Like, when he took all of it. I think I turned it into like $20,000 or $30,000 worth of credit at his store.
Oh, for $4,000. Talk about come up.
And he didn't even take it all. Like I just milked it for years. Like,
Why do you think you're so good at this kind of shit?
I don't know.
I mean, it seemed like you just knew very young, and you were just sort of this, and just had your shit together.
You're very focused on what you're doing, right?
There were just not a lot of resources growing up. And when I went to school with like exceedingly wealthy children, and we were not. And
you were kind of a punk rocker too, weren't you? Or
not at all.
Not at all.
Nerd.
Just a total nerd.
Yeah.
Angry nerd.
Uncomfortable. Like in your own skin kind of nerd. And I just didn't fit in. Didn't really. I made my way and it was fine. I was smart enough to navigate, but most other people just kind of made me mad, and
because you're smarter than all of them. You're like Ozymandias kind of in a way.
Ooh.
You're like lonely from the Watchmen, or you like Dr. Manhattan, like you're just lonely because you're just
he is a Dr.
superior
Manhattan,
to people in
the
certain
tone
ways.
of the voice.
Yeah.
Are we talking about me now?
You're a completely different creature.
The comedian.
All right, so what happened with the Star Wars thing? Did that peak out, or did you get sick of it, or where did it go from there?
I mean, I still sell Star Wars stuff to
yeah,
this day.
but you've added so many components onto your thing.
Right, but I still do buy and sell Star Wars merchandise.
I've been in your Star Wars room. It's incredible.
But
These
people
guys
out
got
there don't
fucking
know.
tubs of hammerheads, like all sorted into bins, Greedos, hammerheads, Warsmen, and just so exciting to see those color coordinated boxes, just seeing like that same figure, like
still
a pile
right
of
back
them.
to those figures for you again.
They're
Hammerhead,
the greatest color palette of all time. But what was the next
I think
component?
I think when I discovered that Frank Kozik had toys, and that was probably mid '90s. You
were happily chugging along doing Star Wars shit. Were you into the fucked up Star Wars shit at this point, or was you keeping it straight?
I was not into bootlegs at all. I totally missed that boat. Did not get the aesthetic at the time. I was just too busy.
What changed your mind?
It's an evolution.
Yeah, I know. Okay, go. Okay. So you discovered Frank Kozik, or you knew who he was already from his posters, right?
I was a Frank Kozik fan in college. I had Frank Kozik posters on my wall.
And how about that?
By the early 2000s, he started making toys. I was like, holy shit. Like, now there's this toy where the artist's personality is like imbued in this piece.
What was the first Frank Kozik toy?
It was the Bounty Hunter Labbit, I think. He made another resin Labbit that came in a lunch pail, which I do not
Labbit's
have.
that old?
Yeah.
I thought that was something he made up with more recently. Interesting. Okay.
It's been a while.
Right.
And so as that designer toy stuff started, the Star Wars stuff got less and less interesting because Star Wars stuff just became like a commodity. It's like,
and you'd already seen all. There's nothing new.
I mean, I had my vintage figures and like this new stuff that was coming out. Here's a new company. They're going to make every ship in this size, right? And then they run out of ships and they're like, okay, we're going to change it. We're going to do it in this size and make it in metal. And like, you have to start all over again. It's the same.
Yeah, it's like Top 40 versus Punk. They were both current at the same times. One was everywhere and ubiquitous, and the other one you had to like search around and was more edgy,
And it's ultimately more rewarding because if you're
into it, if you like Top 40,
I just think it's like collectors get fatigued and they need newness.
So I think that Star Wars just lost its appeal, but also I have people showing up at my door selling me their toy collections, and that's also very sad in and of itself because most of these people are buying stuff that they feel they were kind of duped into thinking that this stuff was going to be valuable.
What, you mean the newer stuff?
Generally.
Yeah.
Most of the collections that come in are newer. I buy older stuff too, and sometimes someone paid $3 and I'm paying them $2,000. That's good for them, but that is so rare. The majority of the stuff is someone comes in with a bucket of Episode 1 figure Jar Jars, and I'm like, I will give you $1 each. It's like, well, I paid $6, and I've been storing them, in my storage unit for 10 years, and paid $5,000 in storage.
Go tell it to the mountain.
It's sad. Like, if it's worth more money, I can pay more money, but I can only pay according to.
Do you sometimes make pity purchases? Like, that sounds like a real pity purchase.
A box of Jar Jars?
Oh, no, actually, Jar Jar is a bad example. There are,
Yeah,
since the Episode 1 release, there have been no Jar Jars, so actually I could use Jar Jars. because there are kids who want to buy it, unfortunately.
And I think now buying Jar Jar shit is like an ironic thing.
Well, I
to
mean,
do.
plus with him being Snoke too. I mean, there's
Yeah.
gonna be a reemergence of that. So.
Maybe. That's brilliant. They did. They had to liquidate all these warehouses of Jar Jar toys by like revealing he was a Sith Lord all along. Did you read that article?
No.
I thought it was brilliant. But anyway.
You did.
Okay,
Yes,
so,
I did.
Okay,
but
so then.
no.
Okay, so then you started collecting the Kozik shit, or
Yeah,
you
I
just
was collecting it. I knew some people in designer toys. Started asking me to help them sell stuff.
What year is this? Like early 2000s?
This is started in 2005, I think.
Really?
Wow.
2004. I was helping, and then I just started selling for one company, and then another, and then it was actually Frank Kozik that was the one that, I don't want to say that he made it very easy for me, because I did a deal with him, I paid him, and for some reason in this kind of business world that he is in, you know, or what, in the record industry or the art or toy industry, whatever he was doing, like getting paid is apparently hard to do. And everyone would call him and say, "Hey, what's up with this Dov guy?" And he'd say, "Dov's cool, he pays." And it just, I built a reputation as a dude who I just returned phone calls, I answered emails, my cell phone number was on the machine. I just did all the things you were supposed to do. And then people think you're a superstar, where really...
It's everyone else is an asshole.
I guess. I mean, I always use the example of, like, there are companies that I've tried to call up and order wholesale from, and then they don't call you back. And that is one of my pet peeves. Like,
And why would someone not want to sell?
I don't know. They're jaded. Like,
You
that's
get
their
a sales
job.
call and you
That's
don't
their
call
job. Like, why don't you return my call? I want to give you money for what you're doing. Like, I don't give a shit.
back? Okay.
So, based on that, like, just not necessarily being good at anything in particular, at least I'm not going to say that I am, and just doing what you're supposed to do apparently makes you a superstar.
Well, you're a pretty straight and narrow guy. You know, and that's not a criticism, but most people are somewhat bent in some way, shape, or form.
But why? Like,
Why?
what about the golden rule? Like, what about treating people how you want to be treated? Like, I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I mean, in my own way, I'm the same way.
I mean,
I'm
I
not
do get that in life people are getting squeezed, you know, and the true test of character is not how someone behaves when things are going well. It's how they behave when shit has really hit the fan.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, are they going to stab you in the back to survive? Like, that's when you can really tell.
Yeah.
But fortunately, never got to that point.
So then but now, okay, so then we're going to leave the SUCKLORD out of this story for now, even though, because it's such a significant chunk of every single thing you do.
Right.
You know, I think that's a real turning point in the whole story here.
Of course.
But, at you know, you were buying my shit and selling my shit, but what you've moved beyond just selling stuff into production and curation and all that like when did that start? Like you for a long time was like, I don't produce, I just distribute, I only sell, I don't make, and then slowly you've eased yourself into actually making this shit now instead of just moving it around. What was the motivation
as a
there?
distributor, it's your job to represent the best interests of the people who you're selling stuff for. And for those people out there who don't know, like, what the distributor does is you're taking product from someone who makes it, storing it in your warehouse, and then you're selling it to different stores at wholesale, and those are the people who sell it at retail. It was never my goal to start producing toys. You know, I found it to be a conflict of interest to make toys and represent someone else's best interest. So if I'm selling toys for
Is there more
you,
risk involved, you think, when you're involved in the making of it too? Like, you saw it as...
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Because,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
as a distributor, you're working on a very tight margin.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden you're taking all this capital and you're putting it into something that could take 6 months or a year to sell through. And when that happens, you tie up all your money. If you make a mistake, you're really fucking around with other people's money.
Mhm.
And that's when a lot of people, a lot of stores, a lot of people just really just, you know, it's a different business model. You're trying to stock your store. You're spending, you know, your budget is X amount of dollars every month to buy stuff to stock your store.
Mhm.
And then one day you decide to go into production. You take 10 grand, you put it into production, it takes you a year to recoup. Well, if you didn't have that extra 10 grand, if that was taking place of you stocking your store, well, it's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So, but there were opportunities that I had. I was involved in producing stuff here and there. I wasn't stupid. I would take the opportunity if someone needed an advance on something. If I knew I was going to be able to sell it, like, I would help out. That's kind of what a distributor does. You believe in something.
I
you
got
can
it. But
throw
like,
some weight
like
around.
the Vader project, though. Like, you started to, what was that? I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead.
Oh, that's a separate thing. We curated an art show.
But I mean, what had you always been doing that too? I mean, you used to started curating shows, or when did that come in? Because you started,
I viewed curating art shows as a way to attract people to the designer toy world. And so the theory behind the Vader project was...
That wasn't the first art show you ever did, though, was it? Didn't you did those little smaller ones at DCon? Or was the Vader project the first time you tried to...
I think the Vader project was the first show, but it lasted for 5 or 6 years.
Why did you decide to do that particular thing? Where you had sent... How many... You bought a bunch of...
100 helmets.
Who made them again?
Master replicas.
Master replicas. You bought 100 master replicas,
No,
you acquired them through some sort of closeout, and were like, what should I do with these things?
No, I pitched them on the idea, and I showed them examples of other platform shows that existed before. There was the Pony Project. There was
all the dunny shit.
There were several, dozen shows out there.
High profile stuff.
And I said, let's take this Vader helmet and have 100 artists customize them. Now, whether they would have agreed... well, what happened was, there was a production flaw on these Vader helmets in China, and they had to be redone. So there just happened to be over 100 Vader helmets that were primed gray, ready to go, that were set for the trash bin. And so... how that happened internally there, I don't know, but they agreed to hand them over, and it was supposed to be a promotion for them. Master Replica presents the Darth Vader project, and they were the primary stakeholder, and I was just a profit participant.
And you were going to do the curation.
They ended up getting into a fight with Lucasfilm. I think
they lost the license, right?
The CEO got pissed at how much of an advance they want. I think he told the head of licensing to go fuck himself. They pulled out of Celebration, and all of a sudden I was left with this show, and they're like, hey, so we're not going to have anything to do with this. Can we void our contract? You can just have it all.
Don't put our name on it.
Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with it. And neither did Lucasfilm. And so I got saddled with all the expenses, too.
Were the helmets already done by the artist at this point? Or were you still...
this happened...
You'd already started the process.
This happened a couple weeks or months preceding Star Wars Celebration 4 in Los Angeles. So there were 66 or 69 helmets ready to go. So that means they didn't pay any of the expenses. So I got saddled with about $20,000 of expenses just, on day one. But it worked out, and I was happy to take that on, just to take complete control of the show.
Yeah, but didn't you also suffer incredibly doing that project?
It was hard.
But it inspired you to continue doing things of that nature.
Yeah, I think it was a very rewarding... The show itself was very rewarding, because Sarah and I were trying to promote these artists, and we felt that... And we made a conscious decision not to have any of the Vader helmets done by any of the Star Wars artists of the time.
Yeah, it was all the designer toy people you were representing and
exactly.
moving their products.
I wanted to bring this world to this other world.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
I had a lot of friends and artists that were in that world that, were kind of upset and felt kind of miffed and slighted.
Yeah, but now everybody's doing those fucking shows
It's true.
with those people.
Yeah.
And they fucking don't even give the props to the Vader project a lot of the time, do they?
I don't know.
Does Star Wars do?
There's like they do that, the Stormtrooper helmets. I think like the
They
501st
did Stormtrooper
ones, yeah.
helmets. They did Boba Fett helmets. They did Boba Fett armor.
I always wish I was in that. I didn't
Me too.
know you back then. Yeah.
You what?
I wish I was in the show too.
Most people do.
That was before. I think I hadn't even met you at that time.
What year was
this
the
was like
Vader project?
2007. You started it, right?
I think we started getting them done in 2006, but it premiered 2007.
Yeah. I mean,
Yours was awesome.
I wound up making the most.
That was like
Star Warsy one of any. Of
Yeah,
them.
it was really like you totally dropped the whole psychedelic approach. I mean, on that piece, you were making
just-
like
I
You made a diorama.
I used
Yeah, I
other
mean-
skills that I had. I used to love making dioramas.
Yeah, yeah, I
And that
mean-
was really more recently after I had come off of that Hasbro gig.
But there's nothing
I just
tweaked,
used
nothing.
all the
It's,
shit
it's
I
a
learned
real
at
loop,
Toy Fair.
a real moisture evaporator, right? That's just nothing.
Well, no, I had those
It
are
was a-
kit bash evaporators.
It was a pain in the ass to ship.
I can
Yeah,
imagine.
sorry.
Yeah, it's one of my
This-
favorite. Your
this
pony
big-
pieces too. Your when you build scenes.
Sometimes a diorama is called for, and I
Oh,
just
yeah.
thought it was fun to play. It was fun to play with the scale, and I also figured because it was going to be a Star Wars thing, it's like it's always been back in the day it was like I always felt my Star Wars cred it needed to be refreshed every once in a while because. I didn't want to be like, oh, he just rips off stormtroopers
Yeah, no,
and he doesn't
totally.
care.
Yeah,
Like
you
I
gotta
wanted to show that I
prove-
really do
yeah.
have the roots. I had the Journal of the
That
Wills
should be a T-shirt
written on it.
Sometimes a diorama is called for.
You can have it. You can have it.
So
But-
it was we didn't know what to expect. We really walked in there thinking nobody's gonna care, and we were right next to the archive with all the real costumes and real art and stuff like that. And there was no line for that, and there was the line to get into the Vader project was averaging a half an hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Burn.
That was great. That
And
was great.
I think we counted something like 20,000 people in the door.
That makes a small cameo appearance in Toy Lords of Chinatown episode 2, which is an exciting detail for all the trivia fans out there. And you wound up showing that at the Warhol Museum too, right?
Mhm.
That's pretty major.
That was a huge achievement.
Yeah.
Not only for me, but there's 100 artists who, most of which had never been in a real museum. They've been in an art gallery, but had their work.
This was this after the Freeman's auction? You did that?
That preceded that.
Preceded that. Mine was in the Warhol Museum.
Yeah,
It was.
all 100 were there
Shit. I
Like,
should put
in
that
a
on my
ro-
motherfucking resume.
in a room.
just shorten it to I'm the next Warhol.
It's in a room with these Warhols on the wall that are worth like 10 or 20 million
Like
dollars.
everybody else.
It was really surreal. They like cleared the floor and we just made this, and it was one of their best-selling events. Like they made more selling, those tickets than just about anything else. They told me.
That's some contemporary shit.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Let's keep going because we're running out of time, and I want to get to the end of your sad tale. Or I'm waiting for the sad part to start.
Jesus.
What else do you want to know?
Well, no, and I guess from the next phase of your development was you started curating resin figures and hand manufactured toys, and things of that nature. What was the sort of derive in doing that? Because that's now your main thing. You don't even really distribute toys anymore.
Right. So in February of this year, I sold the distribution part of DKE. DKE still exists, but I no longer am
Yeah, but then
involved.
what the fuck is DKE without the distribution? I thought you said at the beginning you're a toy distributor. Yet you sold your
was the
distribution
didn't
company
ask
and you're
me
still
what I
doing
tell
something.
people. You didn't ask me what I really do.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, I did ask
so
you what you really did. It
DKE
just took a fucking 40 minutes to get
So you
to
should
the
just
answer.
say DKE and then walk away.
Why did you choose to sell the distribution?
I felt like I'd taken it as far as it would go. It was me and a staff of 4 people in a 10,000 square foot warehouse, and beyond that, I did not have the training or the capability or actually the desire to learn to manage more people, to invest in infrastructure.
Automated shit.
Yeah, it's like when you... So the reason some of those people that when you call them to give them money don't call you back is because they're spread too thin, they're burnt out, they hate what they're doing, right? And I didn't want to get to that point. So I found someone to buy the company who I still work for. I work about a day a week, and I still handle vendor relations, getting new product in the door, and dealing with all the artists that I had relationships with. But then someone else is handling the employees. If your cat got sick and can't come to work, like it's not
That's
my
not
problem.
your fucking problem.
Paying the rent's not my problem.
All the shipping
The
and fulfillment
insurance,
and all that crap.
Like the selling is their job.
That must feel real good.
It's good, and they're doing a good job. And Scott, who took it over, has an incredible knowledge in programming. He already has a searchable site up. He does work for healthcare and is their kind of a savant when it comes to that stuff, and he can implement back end systems that can automate things that I could never do. Well, I could do, but I would have to pay someone like $100,000
Pay someone like him to do it anyway.
Yeah, $100 an hour to do that stuff, because even the back end that we had with programming cost $20,000, right?
So,
and to get that to plug into a website that could communicate was like $60,000, and then you have to hire an IT person to manage that all year. It's like I wasn't gonna double the business.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah,
that's not you anyway.
Well, there you go.
So, but then what? So, if you only work on that 1 day a week, what do you do the rest of the time?
I expanded my show schedule. So I used to do 2 shows a year, San Diego and Designer Con, and now I'm here in New York because I just finished New York Comic Con. So my goal is
what are your shows exactly? What do you do in your shows? The shows you're doing?
The shows that I'm doing.
What are you selling?
I am selling, generally like resin bootleg action figures. Yes. And so when people come up
what
to
are those?
So when people come
what
up
are
to
resin bootleg action figures?
I will explain it to you.
Articulate.
You'll be quiet. So when people come up to the booth, they say, "What are these?" Right. The first thing is I point to a gay Empire figure. So you're familiar with the SUCKLORD's work? And sometimes, most of the time, they actually say yes. And I say, well, he founded this scene about 10 years ago, and this is the second.
I wasn't fishing for this.
And this is the second generation that have followed in his footsteps.
Thanks, that's nice. You don't have to say that, or does it help you sell shit to say that?
It helps me sell shit.
Okay, fine. As long, because I wouldn't expect you. I don't want a handout or anything like that.
But I do have a lot of doing shows and putting product out at shows is explaining to the general public actually what it is. There's the education process, because some people walk up to the show and think they're legitimately licensed toys, and they're like, "What is this?" And then you have to tell them, well,
then
actually,
it's like, well, it's actually, you heard of Mad Magazine? Well, this is the action figure version.
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
What would you rather answer? Someone that you meet socially asking, "What do you do?" or someone at a convention asking, "What is this?"
Well, there's an actual benefit to me telling someone at a convention what this is.
Okay.
If they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
But
which one can you do better?
When someone walks up to you and asks you what you do, you have to kind of evaluate what their motivation is.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
or what you can get off of them.
Well, that's what you do.
Well, I mean, just like, how much does it benefit me to tell this guy my whole rigmarole?
Look, most people don't do that.
I think they do.
So you're just more honest about it.
You're doing it in the same way. You know, what their motivation is. You're trying to determine if it's worth your while to answer their question. And what would probably make it worth your while is some incentive that benefits you.
Usually when someone is asking me that question, I'm thinking in my mind, what is the easiest way I can like maneuver out of this situation?
Right. Okay.
Like if a lawyer from Lucasfilm was like, "What do you do?" What would you say?
I represent artist-made action figures.
Nice.
That's fine.
That's what I mean. I actually don't use the word bootleg. I don't, even though we all call it a bootleg, they're really not bootlegs.
No.
And I don't call them bootlegs. People come up and say, "Are these bootlegs?" And I say, actually, no. An artist actually created this. This is fair use. Then in my mind, I'm thinking, go fuck yourself. But, not really. But kind of.
But you're saying now this is your main occupation now? This is the thing you do most of the time, is put these shows together, because you actually bring in the artists and you pay them to make the stuff, and you sort of, pick and choose who's going to be there, and then you have a lot of people contributing to this operation. This is your main thing now?
No.
You still cut hair too, right?
What percentage? Well, okay. So you work in the factory or the distribution.
I work for Dispersed. Let's say on average a day a week. I still do, the Star Wars, the vintage toys, liquidations and stuff like that. I do conventions. I've expanded that to 4 or 5 conventions a year. I hope to do, a couple more Kickstarters every year, more minifigures. I got some book projects that I want to do. I have a lot of, now that I'm a dad and have a 3-year-old, I can't work, 50, 60 hours a week anymore. And if I wanted the business to grow, I'd have to, pivot and work that 60 and then work another 20 doing something else. And so I needed to get it down to a point where I could cobble together a living doing a whole lot of different things. And I think it's better this way. I can work on one project very intensely for a short period of time, and then it's over. So, this year we have Complex Con and then DCon, and then I don't have a show for 6 months.
What the fuck is Complex Con?
That's in Long Beach, Complex Magazine.
Are you going?
Oh, really? When is that?
Early November.
Is this new? I never heard that.
Yeah. Kanye was supposed to headline, but then he backed out. But if you
He
go to
told
the
me he's on the
website,
fence.
you'll see like
what
Murakami's done
others-
all the graphics.
Really? That sounds.
They're
pretty
having
smart.
chefs. They're having music. They're having like boutique stores.
And you have a booth there?
Yeah.
Early November. What day?
It was a Complex magazine twice.
Nice.
Good for you.
Someone with a computer over there could probably look it
Yeah,
up.
I can look up the dates, absolutely.
Do it in
Thanks.
that voice.
That's the
yeah.
first
Do it in
thing
the
we-
voice. I need the
Sorry.
voice.
I hope you're
Drawing
getting a lot of.
dicks.
I hope you're getting a lot of work done over there.
Right, it's going to be November 5th to the 6th.
I won't be
Long
there,
Beach,
but
California.
Maybe I'll send you something. to
Live
sell.
performance by Skrillex, Kid
Oh.
Cudi, Travis Scott, and Virgil Abloh.
Wow, that's pretty legit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
They're trying hard. How it's going to be the first year, I don't know.
How many toy vendors
How
are
do
there
you
that you know? Or is
Excuse
it
me,
just
I-
you?
I think it's just us.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I think they saw what we were doing at San Diego and just said like, "Holy shit! Like,
Oh,
you
awesome.
need to be there."
Yeah.
that's
So-
great.
Good benefit from San Diego for sure.
Well,
This
I
San
mean-
Diego was a transformational year.
Oh,
Like,
good.
So, are
people-
we going?
I'm so happy I missed it. Damn it.
That's
We're
every
going,
year
right?
they're
We're
gonna do
going.
that, or this is the first one.
I'm sure if it makes
And
money.
didn't Dispersed do Adult Con recently,
They did set up there, yeah.
which is like a sort of porno convention or something like that, or
They had enough product that fit peripherally for the category. and
yeah,
the
but no, I just
table was
think I
cheap
mean, is
enough.
there's a deliberate effort to put this type of work beyond just the normal channels, which are Comic-Cons and toy conventions, and trying to push it into the larger popular culture world.
For the larger distribution game, I would say that we do designer toys at Dispersed about as well as they can be done. We sell toys for just about everyone who needs the help and doesn't want to do it themselves, and we sell to virtually every store that is interested in vinyl toys. So the question is, and this was one of the things that was going through my mind, like how can I expand this, and what I decided I couldn't do this on my own.
But I'm also imagining that the guys that bought it from you wanted to know what the growth potential was before they signed on. Like you had said, it had kind of been min-maxed out.
I told them this, but so what we decided on is that, and what I've been doing for them since February, is signing up companies who are making pins, prints, patches, stickers, zines, primarily in the $10 and under category, and with a catalog of that kind of product, we can push that into any kind of gift shop, any kind of gift store, any kind of independent retailer, record store, bookstore, comic shop, toy store, and that market is endless. Where we've really kind of tapped the vinyl toy market about as far as it can go, and it's starting to recede just slightly. I mean, it plateaued for a number of years. I think it's taken a little dip, not too hard. But
do you think that this eventually, the designer toy shit is going to continue to find its way into, more mainstream consciousness, or is it just something
but
that's
it
destined
has.
to just sort of always hit that plateau? Because we've seen it happen a couple of times already in this business, right? Where it sort of peaked and flowed, but it never really
can't
achieved
really-
like escape velocity.
It will, but it's not going to be taking those other people with it. The concept has gone on. Funko, like the pop vinyls, is the whole idea of a platform and taking this one shape with the beady eyes and just repeating it ad nauseum, like that's.
Would you really consider the Funko Pops true designer toys?
No, that's not. I'm not saying it's. That's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
Because everything is technically designed by somebody. Most people
But
don't.
no, but I mean the designer toy, it's like a feature of the toy is the person who made it.
It doesn't matter. It came from that, probably would not have existed without it. Now if you walk into Target, Toys R Us, wherever, Walmart, there are blind box toys everywhere. Lego puts out blind box minifigures, blind bagged or whatever. That's something that the culture now understands, asks for, and wants.
Yeah.
That started somewhere. So it's having an impact. It's just not like paying back the artists and people that we know. That will happen as the artists in the game just elevate their game and become
Like your effect on what's in Target right now is there. It's just not you. It's reaction. If that makes any sense.
Right, you're not necessarily profiting from it.
But-
it's like
But I may have played some small
Yeah, well,
part in
100%.
generating
Yeah,
interest
yeah.
in that type of
you
thing.
have certainly affected the culture.
Yeah.
Right. You have affected the buyers and the people who know, right? But it might take another 10 years before the people who are really your fans are in the position of decision making to really pay it back.
How long was it before Macquarie became popular with Star Wars film fans?
I think right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole different
I'm
thing.
always going to go back to Frank Kozik as an example. Like, he'd just been doing has had so many careers in rock posters and in music and now toys, and those fans. It happens to Jermaine Rogers too. Like, his early fans are now, key decision makers at record companies, and he gets jobs out of that, and the corporate gigs pay well.
But I mean, just the idea that, like, sure, the more mainstream world can borrow the forms and concepts and approaches that the designer toy world, that's clear. But, like, will the world ever sort of adopt the notion of, like, a superstar toy designer, like,
They
with
have.
actual personality? To a certain extent, like,
There's a few
Ron
out there.
English, Frank Kozik,
Why don't you go
Cause.
Takashi Murakami, Cause, stuff like
But those
that.
guys are also just famous artists. They're not.
Yeah, but
toy-
but you have to
the fact
understand.
That's irrelevant. The fact that you make a toy, or you make a canvas, or you make a movie, like, artists are artists, and it's broken.
If
out.
this scene,
Yeah, well,
this
too bad.
scene can never.
No, I don't give a shit.
This
Fuck-
scene can
fuck
never
everybody,
become
fuck
mainstream
toys.
and still remain itself.
Well, the thing is, most of this scene itself, like, is people gonna, like, is the designer toy world
People will split
as
off.
it's
but
made of the people that the personalities that actually live in it. Those people are just gonna come and go and whatever.
If it rises to a level of, like, where everyone knows about it, it won't be itself anymore.
the market for your action figures, right, will have the possibility to expand, but it's not going to be like, $100 figure is not going to become, what every household needs.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a very small niche.
But in terms of
Cool.
the cheap action figure at the Kmart or whatever, that space is there, and you might be able to get in there. But in terms of
So someone will make a lot of money off of your work after you're dead.
I wish them all the luck in the world. I hope that's true.
I mean, if you try to get an Andy Warhol license, and you want to do something with a Campbell soup can, they will refer you to Campbell's, and they have a partnerships. You say, I want to do a T-shirt with the Andy Warhol can. They're like, okay, well, we'll split the license, and Campbell soup gets their cut. And
you might be owned by Star Wars at some point.
one day Disney's going to be getting a cut of the gay empire.
Wow. I would consider that to be an accomplishment.
Yeah, not bad for a job.
Not
right?
bad for a job, even if I'm dead, because then I don't have to deal with the paperwork. So we're getting to the end of this. This is pretty.
In the future, there will be no paper.
This shit is over. So, like, what do you? Anything to say to wrap this up? Put a nice
mad
bow
at
on
us?
it. That was a pretty good biography piece, don't you think?
I'm happy.
Is that a wedding ring?
No, it's the ring.
Okay.
It's the ring.
Yeah. See,
Is the ring supposed to be worn
Like
on
the Japanese
Lord of
horror
Finger
or
rings.
Lord of?
This is where I wear it. This has always been my ring finger. If you've ever seen me in a photo, I've always tucked my ring finger. To
And what ring, is that,
symbolize-
like a Lord of the
Why?
Rings ring?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the precious. Yeah. Why?
You tuck that finger.
Because this is
It's the shocker.
No, it's because
that's
it's like
yeah.
a Sauron thing.
Oh, that's not
Because
like
a lot
the
is
two and the.
No.
thing,
I mean,
right?
no. This is the shot. The shot. What is the shot? You would know how that goes. Pinky in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Hey, man, it's two to pink.
I just
one
used
to
two
think.
hands.
Would you rather live in the world of Lord of the Rings or Star Wars? If you
Star
could,
Wars. Hell yeah. I would
okay.
hate to live in Middle Earth.
Okay.
I
Even
love
if you were an
watching- I
elf?
would hate to live in
What if you were an
Westeros,
elf?
Too. If I was an elf, the elves are really sad.
Oh, really? Okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
There's no heating and air conditioning.
I don't know. I'm not into Lord of
The
Rings.
elves are sad.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to be an elf.
But yeah, thanks for having me on.
No.
I like talking about myself. It reinforces the false narrative I have of my life.
Do you really have a false narrative of your life? You don't seem
We
like
all
that
do.
type of guy.
Don't we all?
Some more so.
Yeah.
Yes. Answer is yes. Next.
Some-
Thank you for joining us.
Some more so than others, I would say.
Yeah.
I think some.
Some people, some of us project it way more than others.
Are you talking about me?
No.
My narrative is pretty fucking true.
Totally, bro.
Keep telling that. to
You're
yourself.
glowing pink
You think
right
I'm
now.
lying to myself?
We all lie to ourselves.
Is that bad? It stops the pain, right?
It's
like what I was
nature.
telling-
It does. Yeah, it does. It does stop the
I was
pain.
I was
Yeah.
telling him that earlier. It's like humans by nature are liars, And we lie mostly to ourselves because the reality would crush us.
But the thing is, if you lie to yourself and you believe it, then it's true because everything's subjective anyway. It's what you experience as reality is reality.
We look
if
pretty
you can
foolish,
lie
though.
yourself into living in the world you want to live in, then you live there.
Yeah.
And as long as nothing
but you can't
interferes
will
with that.
food like onto the table to eat it. Like you'll still die.
Yeah, of course I can't do that. But that's different than telling.
That's why
when
Neil's
you're
here.
telling
He
yourself
makes
a
the food.
narrative. You're not. That's different. Of course not. But I'm just saying it's like
There's
more
some
about the sort of
interesting
like
versions of reality
who
happening
you
in this
who you
room.
are. Like who you are. I was talking about more.
Who
like,
you are is a complete fabrication and lie.
Yeah, but if you're happy with what you've created, then you're happy, right?
As long as you got some ramen noodles.
We can
you'll be
talk
all right.
in the next show about what happiness is.
We still have 2 minutes.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
To talk about happiness?
Happiness, go.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Then you'll die.
I don't know.
You can't will
I
food.
think this like 60-minute format like is probably like when it goes like you should just go.
This is just starting to get good. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll
Good
be
luck
back.
with that.
We'll be
You're
back
all lying
again.
to yourselves.
Yeah, and we're gonna continue to lie ourselves and feed our egos and just inflate each other's own false narratives because that's who you pick to be friends, right? You guys both inflame this ridiculous creation,
The hemorrhoid that is your...
you encourage me to keep going. So why should I stop? And that's who your real friends are. Thanks, David.
Thanks, man.
David Healy.
Thanks.
You were good today. J Corp. Nice girl.
Did my job today.
Well, yeah, you did a good job. Nasty Neil, you laughed at all the right times. You went from incredulous to amazed. Dropped a few tidbits. And you did really good. So thanks for listening. If you want to give us any money, you could go to suckadelic.com/support, and there's a bunch of buttons you can press to digitally remunerate us with funds. Good night, everybody.
Peace.